Hello everyone, Dr. Chris Martinson here, and obviously in a more casual setting than usual. Welcome to Honey Badger Farm. I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Pierre Kory today, and as is usual on YouTube, we can only put some of it up front, but I'm going to give you the best part up front, which is this. Listen, we're going to talk about some things that pertain to his specialty and my expertise. You can find the rest of that over at Peak Prosperity, but for now, this part out here on YouTube, we're going to talk about actually the good side of COVID for us, which has been, we got to find out who were the intellectual giants and who were the moral heroes of this particular story. That is Pierre Kory to me. We have made a lifelong friendship over our connection through this work that he's done, that I've done, that we're doing together. As well, I have many other people now in my basket of people who I trust. And I have a lot of people who I no longer trust. That's what COVID has done. It's also revealed the intellectual frauds and the moral cowards in this story. So that's the part that I think we need to talk about. But good news, we found out who you can really trust in this story. Best part. I love that. So check out this interview. I think you're really going to like it. I always love talking to Pierre Kory. He is absolutely one of the good guys. All right, let's take a look.
You know, I met all these just brilliant doctors who just had this intuition and sense of the disease and what's needed and the right amount of, empiricism and trial and error and risk benefit analyses and just these fluid dynamic approaches to medicine, which is why I love medicine, right? Is that you're trying to solve these problems and you have to navigate all these variables of the patient and the medicines and the pathophysiology of the disease. And it's just like this almost three-dimensional problem you're trying to solve. And so I met so many great doctors, so many great thinkers, and I call them little FLCCC. So like each one of them found like-minded individuals who knew that like the narrative and the general, like this train barreling down the tracks, we were heading in the wrong direction fast, and people were getting hurt.
Welcome to this Peak Prosperity podcast. I am your host, Dr. Chris Martinson, and today we welcome back Dr. Pierre Kory, firebrand, outspoken New York doctor that made waves early on in the COVID cycle and continues to make waves as an unapologetic champion of science, evidence-based medicine, and most importantly, putting patients first. I now count him among the people I trust most and a personal friend. I believe in Dr. Kory, and I believe in the excellent work that the supremely dedicated staff at the FLCCC are doing. They care, they're dedicated, and they are fighting a huge fight for all of us. I'm bringing Pierre back on today because it's time to shift the discussion. We need to let people know that continuing to live in ignorance, it's now a choice, one that they can actively turn away from and towards living again without fear and with a positive sense of the future. So it's time to change the narrative. It's time to get our lives back and to decide for ourselves where we place our attention and to manage our lives in accordance with our personal risk profiles, medical histories, and assessments. In short, it's time to move on and get back to living a healthy and fear-free life. Pierre, welcome to the program.
All right, Chris, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And yes, I count you as a friend and a like-minded colleague, actually, as we try to figure out how to navigate forward, which I think we're doing a good job of so far.
Well, I talked about taking a new leaf, new narrative, and living more healthy. What are you up to right now?
I'm actually, I'm actually trying to get a little bit healthier. I just got out of a brutal ICU week, and I have a couple of weeks off, and actually went on a little retreat, just trying to catch up on work. And I'm doing a water fast, actually, which I like to do, and it actually helps restore me. And I'm on day 4, Chris, and I'm feeling really good.
Oh, excellent. Hey, that's really good to hear. So I want to start here. COVID, I think you and I have been at it about the same amount of time. We both started in early spring of 2020. And along that way, I have to tell you, Pierre, unfortunately, a lot of my heroes were killed by COVID. It's just none of them died from the disease. I lost a lot of people along the way who I admired and respected. And I've also gained people who I really admire and respect. In many ways, this has been a great reshuffling of who I count as among my colleagues, my friends, and I believe I've made friends for life out of this. And so I want to talk about that process because it's a tale of two worlds. There's one world where I see people who have, I don't know what happened to them, Pierre. Whenever they wake up, I'll welcome them back with gracious, compassionate arms. But until that point in time, many of them are operating to me, and sounds a little harsh, but I believe it's true, as intellectual frauds and moral cowards. They are not following the data. They are afraid of losing job, status, money, something, I don't know what. And as a consequence of that, they are not following the data. They're not helping people. They're not putting patients first. But on the other side of that, there are people who've risked it all. I count you among those, to do the right things. So that's been my impression of it. I would just love to get your take on it.
I'd love everything you just said. It's been really my experience as well. I mean, first of all, I like the friends for life thing. Well, let me get back to that in a second because, I mean, my gosh, the people I've met in what's a journey, right? Life is a journey, and this stretch of road has been absolutely unique in my life. I've never gone through so much personal and intellectual change and challenges, and where I've actually had to, like you said, I've had to leave off former colleagues, mentors, even where not only we don't talk so much, but when we have talked, we quickly learned that we really couldn't find, like, there was just not I mean, we always discussed and argued and debated stuff before, but something happened here. And yeah, I agree. Like, I just, there's like a little bit of an estrangement. And when you talk about, like, I don't want to say who got it right or wrong, but let's go back to that data point that you made. It's that, why did they do this, or why are they thinking that way? And I want to say one thing is that I want to be really humble. Is that I think, that phrase, "But for the grace of God go I." Like, I think that could have happened to me. I think what the journey that I took, or the path that I'm on, was really due to my close connections with really serious intellectual and data-driven folks who helped me to see really where the solutions were, what we really should do. And by being around those folks, I was able to, I think, get a lot of things right. Had I been, let's say, like where I'd been for my whole career, like in New York, where there's like this strong narrative and all those big academic centers are telling you what to do and what not to do and what to believe, and you're overworked and don't have time, and no one's showing you how to critically analyze or get that data. If you don't devote the time and really ask the difficult questions, you're going to go along with what's being told, and you're going to be trusting in authority. And like, I think it's okay to trust in what you think are authoritative experts. The problem is if you get it wrong and you trust in those who are supposed to be expert and supposed to be giving good guidance, and they're not. And that was the catastrophic error. And I feel like many of my colleagues simply trusted too much in supposedly authoritative and supposedly altruistic agencies. I mean, Chris, I went into this thinking, I literally came into this thinking that our agencies had our public health, the health of the public as their primary goal and objective and purpose. And therefore all of their actions and guidance would be directed towards the elevation of that. Tell me when I sound crazy, by the way.
Keep going.
Descend further into madness. And, I hate to make a joke of that, but I mean, that's where I started. And I found that, that trust started to erode the more I learned and the more I investigated. So like, I started out this road with Paul Marik, who is, one of the greatest medical intellectuals I've ever met. I mean, he consumes papers at a rate you wouldn't believe. And he has these habits, which are so, which have just basically elevated me as a doctor. You know what his best habit is? Like, when he has a question about a paper that he's read, or he has an idea, he literally calls either the first or the senior author of the paper, or he emails them directly. And he gets these really rich insights, because when you read an academic paper, there's a lot of nuance that might not make it, or that the peer reviewers removed. And so Paul gets this rich sort of texture and insight into stuff. And so when I started out with Paul, when we formed the FLCCC, and suddenly the paper started flying, we started reading and just questioning. And then I started meeting more and more folks. And then when we met you, and like we saw that you were also data driven, and you were also asking the right questions, and really knew how to, with your $150 a month Comcast connection.
That's the secret.
We're able to navigate this trove of really rich data and knowledge. And so basically, I feel like I was dragged along by some intellectual giants, and I got to learn. I just got to learn how to find the knowledge that was going to give us good judgment and good direction. And by doing that, it made me an expert at COVID in many of its aspects. And hopefully that expertise that we gained, I think it's added value. And so I started out talking about Paul, and then you, and then when you talk about all the friends that you've made for life, I mean, I think I became more of a public face of the FLCCC, because of that testimony. And also I'm much more of a social and outgoing being, I think, than Paul. Paul's more the reclusive intellectual. And so like I've forged like these, I mean, literally a global network of colleagues, because I don't want to sound egotistical, but when I talk about their organizations in all these other countries that reached out, like-minded individuals who just sort of got it, like knew what not to trust, knew how to find out the right answers, knew the right amount of skepticism, and just knew what common sense, or I don't even know what the word for common, do we have a new word for common sense? Like, have we figured out a synonym for that? Because it's not so common.
Unobtainium.
Wait, say that again?
Unobtainium.
What does unobtainium mean?
It's like you can't get it. It's almost impossible to find.
Oh, that's what it is. It's unobtainium.
It's not so. It's a new element. It's very rare.
Yeah. So they were steeped in unobtainium, and so I met all these just brilliant doctors who just had this intuition and sense of the disease and what's needed, and the right amount of empiricism and trial and error and risk benefit analyses, and just these fluid dynamic approaches to medicine, which is why I love medicine, right? Is that you're trying to solve these problems, and you have to navigate all these variables of the patient and the medicines and the pathophysiology of the disease. And it's just like this almost three-dimensional problem you're trying to solve. And so I met so many great doctors, so many great thinkers, and I call them little FLCCC. So like each one of them found like-minded individuals who knew that like the narrative and the general, like this train barreling down the tracks, we were heading in the wrong direction fast, and people were getting hurt. They were getting run over, with this juggernaut, like this monolithic answer to everything, these blanket kind of just no nuance, no understanding, like, the mask everywhere, running down a highway at 40 miles, running down a highway on the side of the road with a mask, like that, that's like the absurd levels, and so anyway, I just like all the folks, all the little organizations, like these little grassroots organizations of scientists and physicians, and who reached out to me, who appreciated some of my lectures, appreciated the testimony, and like, it almost makes me kind of like, tears almost come to my eye. Let me just tell you an anecdote. So this sentiment that you just talked about, Chris, about, this journey and the people we've met, the people we've kind of, I'm going to say temporarily left behind. Because I do think, I love some of my former colleagues and mentors. I just think that we're in this two different intellectual worlds, but I think we can find each other again. But, I got to tell you, 2 weeks ago, Tess Laurie wrote to me, and she wrote me this beautiful email, just saying, oh God, I think I'm going to cry. She just wrote she just said how much she appreciated me, and how important it was that we sort of met, and we kind of, were fighting for the right things. And it was just nice to hear from her how much she appreciated me. So You're not supposed to make me cry, Chris.
It's a, it's turning into something of a habit of mine.
Yeah,
So
apparently. Yes, you've done this before, actually.
I did once. I didn't do anything,
But
I think that speaks to the level of connection you two have at this point. And have you met her in person?
no, I mean, no, I haven't traveled to Europe yet. But that's another really kind of cool thing is that like I can't wait to travel. I have friends in every country of the world.
Yes.
And like not only that, but like I literally want to see them and have dinner. Like I have like some of the coolest people that like just like-minded folk, just bold, big personalities, big brains, just interesting. Many of them have great senses of humor too, which is really cool because I consider myself to have a good sense of humor and just super fun people. And I just anticipate like, and like you said, friends for life. So I know there's places I can go where I can find someone and just learn a ton and share and just, like I say with my old buddies, just shoot the shit.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that. By the way, if you want to watch the whole interview, which is fantastic, it gets even better, come on over to peakprosperity.com and we'll tell you how many minutes in you have to fast forward because we're putting the whole interview over there. Obviously, you've already watched part of it. So come on by Peak Prosperity, check out the whole interview. You're going to love it.